I wanted to give you your flowers, as the kids say, because you rated JD Vance as one of the worst vice presidential, before your most recent piece where you said he's the worst VP pick of all time. He was one of in the lowest tiers of your VP power rankings. And I just got to come back to the donut clip.
The zoo has come to town. Thank you for letting us come in here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm JD Vance. I'm running for vice president. Good to see you.
Okay.
Just everything. Yeah, a lot of glazed here, some sprinkle stuff, some of these cinnamon rolls, just whatever makes sense.
The donut clip, which has gotten a lot of burn. And there are like probably 10 things in that video that are just inconceivable. Like saying to like, what donuts do you want? Saying whatever makes sense was like one of the most like Voight comp test fails I've ever seen. But just the fact that they didn't send, because like the thing is, this is weird because like Trump is so good at that kind of like sort of customer
Retail
service
politics.
interaction.
Yeah.
Where he comes in and buys
McDonald's
sandwiches, he buys everyone pizza or whatever. But like the fact that they didn't scout someone ahead, because like normally you want to talk to the owner of the donut shop who is happy to talk to you and promote their business. The employees don't give a shit. Like when he's just like, "Hi, I'm JD Vance. I'm running for vice president," and she just goes, "Okay."
No, he's doing he's endorsed sectoral bargaining, so he's like their tribune.
Yeah.
Or the clip where he actually does talk to the business owner when he goes to the deli in Kenosha, and he's like, "Hey, do you have any food that's like really shitty so we could give it to journalists?"
I want to ask that really badly now.
Who goes to a fucking restaurant and is like, "What's your shittiest food?" What do you think that really sucks dick?
That's going to be an intrusive thought for the rest of my life. I'm going to have to do that at least once. I want to ask them like what their worst food is.
Like asking a waiter, "Hey, what's bad here? I'd like to have that, please."
Yeah.
Hey, what do you got that could give my wife diarrhea? My battle axe wife, and then just look around waiting for other businessmen to like nod their heads or high five you.
Also, just assuming that like a deli owner in Kenosha, the last Italian in Kenosha, sort of the last Roman encircled by Germanic barbarians in a way, like assuming that this man who, he probably he's married to Strega Nono, that nice mouse who cooks all the pasta.
Mm-hmm.
And assuming that man is like, "Oh, I want to kill the media too. I hate Caitlin Collins." Like, no, most people aren't thinking about that.
I think the problem with Vance is that he's not naturally like Trump at all. And he's watching a lot of people try to become Trump has been excruciating. And watching him, he not clearly, like he has a very well-examined biography. A lot of people have read his book, and a lot of people went to school with him, and they'll talk to reporters like, "This is not the man I know." Except every time he changed in the direction of becoming more influential, more powerful. That's normal. A lot of people do that and then run for office. But it's when he's never been like this. Like he always in the halls of the Congress, there are Republicans who hate reporters and won't talk to them. Like Mike Lee always fakes a phone call because he hates reporters, and he really does in his bones think they're evil. And Vance did not think that way, but then he'll over, and you always screw up like when you're overcompensating. You're always in the 40-year-old virgin, saying, "Oh, how do boobs feel? Like a bag of sand." That's right, fellas. Am I right? Am I right? You know how we like boobs?
At least Stefanik was like this too. Like she endorsed the great replacement theory.
She would do this stuff Trump wasn't even asking for, like we're going to expunge his impeachment, and he never even commented on it because he thought that was stupid.
Yeah,
I think Vance has more talent than that in some ways, but he never was a backslapping politician. He was a guy who got into politics through Peter Thiel and through the Founder Network, that's a path. I mean, Blake Masters tried it and failed. He succeeded in it, but he never was the guy who was the best at relating to people in the duck blind. He just wasn't him. Like Don Jr. is actually better than him. So when he tries to be a tough guy, cracking wise to reporters, he's much better when he's just being kind of chill and talking to reporters because he wants to be a chill guy who gets along with people. It's weird seeing him in this position. Like that was the worst example of it though. The donut thing, I thought, everyone jumps on that, but I watched that with my mouth hanging open for 2 minutes. It was bad. You're supposed to have at least one person in there who's happy to meet you.
Yeah, and also when he said, "Looks like the zoo has come to town." No, zoos don't travel.
That's not a thing that happens. Yeah,
The zoo came to town.
It's like I'm your town has a zoo or it doesn't. Yeah.
You know what?
So
I think like the way people try to psychoanalyze him is that like oh, he's like overeducated, he's overcompensating, he's like insecure and wants to be seen as like this really intellectual person. I'm just going to take him at his word. That is a thing a fucking hick says. He is a hillbilly. Like you ain't ever been. Like you think the zoo travels? God damn it! I believe you now. You're fucking Cletus.
It is this posture. The posture, like as Dave put it, is so weird. Though, I specifically for Vance, because like I was paying attention to his sort of turn in 2021, back when he was on Twitter and saying things where he sounded like Sideshow Bob going "Capital knockers, ma'am," when he's trying to fit in with the construction workers, where he would say things like, "Isn't Alex Jones terrific?" Just none of these things that an actual like jug hooter would say. And it's so weird to me because, like, yeah, he's exceedingly comfortable talking to members of the media because until like 2019 or 2020, he was like Mr. WEF. Davos was probably his favorite fucking place in the world to go. It is like there are people who have gone from liberal to conservative, from like, you know, SDS to neocon, from trot to fucking whatever, right? That's a common path. But specifically someone who has gone from like specifically a fan of the New World Order to being like, no, I actually hate them. That I haven't really seen.
Josh, what do you make of the contrast between like the instincts that led Trump to pick JD Vance and Kamala's team picking Tim Walz? Like, what do you make of the contrast between Walz and Vance? Because I guess like my takeaway is like, you know, there wasn't much politics at the DNC, but like, you know, I mean, from a purely pragmatic standpoint or just strategically, not morally, and morally, I watched the DNC as I would imagine the Wannsee conference would look like if it had a DJ.
Yeah.
But that being said, like I have been sort of at least somewhat taken aback by the, at least what I regard as like the slightly better political instincts of the Kamala Harris campaign, as opposed to what I was assuming would be like the standard Democratic playbook. Like, do you see that at all? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like really that, like I kind of, it made so much sense to me in so many ways. I was surprised to see them not do it. But the biggest contrast, and I think this is a bit underrated by people who kind of look at like the policy details and everything, just the basic qualifications. Walz it's just a very generically qualified resume. He was a member of Congress for like 5 terms. He's a second term governor. Like that's just very basic. Vance has been in the Senate since 18 months now. I think somebody said this and it really stuck with me. Trump's campaign, this year is older than JD Vance has been a senator. Trump began his campaign in November 2022. Vance was sworn in January 2023. So when he began his campaign, Vance was technically unemployed. He's only run in public office once, in Ohio in a Republican plus 12 state in an opposition midterm for his party with 8%.
And Josh, as you put it out, his political campaign was dead until Trump endorsed him.
Oh yeah. He was going to get in 4th place in a 3rd-person race. There was no natural constituency for this. Yeah,
he was losing a jug hooter off to a Jewish man.
Yeah, Josh Mandel.
Josh Mandel, is the son of 2 orthodontists. He was born into the role of being the cantor at a conservative synagogue. And he was more convincingly a jug hooter than JD was.
He was great. He was a born right wing outrage poster. He walked so Valentina Gomez could run. I was really sad to see him not get that nomination. But he was losing to a fucking businessman, Mark Dolan or something. It was the guy who owns the Cleveland the Cleveland Guardians. Excuse me. He was not it wasn't even a DeSantis thing where at least DeSantis was in 2nd place before Trump had to endorse him twice. There was just no traction there. People were not fucking with him at all. And he just gets over the line with a plurality of the vote because Trump endorses him. I think Bernie Moreno actually did way better than him this year, which says a lot in the primary. And he was losing for most of that election. He was down to Tim Ryan in Ohio throughout most of the summer and into the fall. The Republicans had to bail him out with tens of millions of dollars, just flooding the airwaves. And only even then he still underperformed Trump by like 2 points. And that was in a year where every other Ohio Republican was winning by 20. So just electorally, this guy isn't like just somebody who's unimpressive or inexperienced. He was one of the worst like candidates you could bring up of that entire year period. Like he was like he was Blake Masters, Herschel Walker tier. And it's just when you get to that point where like you see somebody making such a questionable pick like Palin or like Eagleton or whatever, it's like you like the sort of default assumption is like, well, that was all they could do, or they really desperately needed to fill this certain role. Trump could have picked anybody. It's really strange. Like he had Burgum, not only like Youngkin was right there. Youngkin was term limited, like he wanted it. Like, was there like some issue with like him being like taller than him or something? Like, I don't like that. I don't get.
Part of this is how he really did get red pilled as Donald Trump since 2020, and he listened. I keep mentioning Don Jr. because he was a factor in all this. So Don Jr. I'm kind of borrowing. I think it was John Swan at the Times who had this, but when they were in their final decision making process, Don Jr. said one that like Vance gets you more, but two that this is Tucker added to the conversation that if he picked somebody else, like he picked Marco Rubio, he might get assassinated by the deep state because the deep state wanted Trump out of the way to replace him with someone like Rubio. And then what happens right before the convention is the deep state, in the form of this loser guy in Pennsylvania, took a shot. The way they talk about it is still they, capital TH, they tried to take him out. I think Trump had already made his mind up mostly for that point, but he was getting this feedback that said, you are winning the election and MAGA can rule for 20 more years, but it won't if you pick Marco Rubio, you pick Doug Burgum. They might betray MAGA, because he went from unconfident Trump 2016 who needed Pence because he needed to be credible with social conservatives. He didn't need that anymore. They liked him already. It was who will keep your legacy, who is with you on everything, who is just as mean as you are as an attacker, which Vance can do that. It's just a different style. It's when he tries to relate when he's weirder, and that's how how it went. Whereas on the Democratic side, it was we are in a hole, but we can come out. And Walz has the people are going to like him once they meet this guy. They're going to like this guy with this story that has gone over how many times? I mean, he won swing seats for 10 years in Minnesota, and then he won governor twice. He wasn't winning deep red areas like Amy Klobuchar, but you can see the results. Like, he's remained pretty popular. Well, I think still the most popular guy on either ticket since he got in the race, since Republicans bashed him, because they were like, no, we don't assume that the whole country's on our side. We assume we might need somebody who can appeal to a voter that doesn't like Kamala Harris. Republicans didn't think that. They're like, no, the country wants Trump. How can the country be promised even more Trump when you're gone?
It's so strange to me because I don't know, for most other political parties, like a midterm like 2022 would have been a massive wake up call that like you need to do something different. And specifically in 2022, like the weirdo stuff, like the fucking, not to use the, now Democratic meme, but like the stuff where you're like, people are asking questions about like the pipes at their kids' school, and you're like, I'm gonna make sure that there are no tampons there. Like, where you freak everyone out, that it would have caused some re-examination, but no, they doubled down on it somehow.
It's like, it's the weirdest part of that to me is that like there was like a 2-month period where like there was a reaction where DeSantis was like competitive in the primary polling. They just kind of forgot about it. And probably because like DeSantis, I think he never really successfully litigated why exactly they did so poorly and why he might have done well in particular. It was, he tried to spin it into like the Ted Cruz style, like, oh, Trump wasn't right wing enough and I was. And that just wasn't like a coherent narrative in a way that like, even like saying like, oh, we need to return to rhinoism, it would have gotten a lot of flack, but at least might have like made people somewhat interested. Like, I think he kind of had just like a very kind of like, we can have our cake and eat it too pitch that like just left people uninterested. Haley just like went back to like she like towed the line for a little bit and like kind of pressed on that, and she did see growth, but then she just really immediately pivoted to like a Bill Kristol style like never Trump thing when she actually got attention, which was really strange to me. So like in that sense, this has never really been litigated by the party at the national level. because they still tried running the Trumps right during the primary. There was never like kind of a reckoning with it. And I think the Trump people felt kind of maybe, I mean, I can't say, I'm just guessing that like they felt defensive in a way and they have to prove like, I don't know, 2022 is a fluke for whatever reason on like this kind of Trump without Trumpism, 1,000-year Reich sort of idea can work. So they're just forcing the issue a little bit.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
2020 they had he's been president and things are bad now, but they're going to come back. And now they have a mix of that plus he is going to destroy the whole system. Like they've returned to the you can he was president, but he's not the establishment. And no one has tried that before because it's kind of unwieldy. It does feel more real and true to Trump's personality than when he was talking about the First Step Act, like which he clearly didn't care about. But that is what they're trying, and they're doing it with Vance and with. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, who had already been pro-Trump, re-upping her endorsement this week, helping him in the debates. They really have glommed onto sort of these populist characters who maybe they were interested in Bernie at 16, but their main interest was in saying American politics sucks. We need more options. It didn't feel like he needed those guys a month ago, and now he does. So that is a change in how the whole operation's working. They were running a much more confident campaign when they chose Vance.